Gabriel Rodriguez looked at my extended hand, then at my face, and just kept walking. "We don't shake hands with people who are already gone," he said, loud enough for everyone in that safety meeting to hear. The room went dead silent. 23 supervisors, department heads, and safety coordinators just stared at their coffee cups like they'd never seen them before. You could hear the old ventilation system humming overhead, the same sound that had been the soundtrack to my 20 years at Hartwell Manufacturing. I'm Lucas Martinez, 58 years old, and until that moment, I thought I knew exactly where my life was heading. 7 more years until retirement, pension secure, wife's medical bills covered, daughter's college tuition handled. I'd been the plant safety director here in Northeast Ohio since I was 38, right after I finished my 8 years in the Navy. This place had been my second home. These people, my second family. Gabriel kept talking like nothing happened, pacing behind the projector like some kind of professor. Starting today, we're implementing a performance-driven culture. That means eliminating positions that don't directly contribute to our bottom line. His voice was smooth, practiced, like he'd given this speech before. Lucas Martinez, effective immediately, your services are no longer needed. Jimmy Torres, one of my press operators, actually gasped. I'd trained Jimmy myself when he started here 12 years ago, taught him how to read the warning signs when machinery was about to fail. Sarah Wilson, our quality control supervisor, was shaking her head slightly. These people knew what I'd done for this company, what I'd done for them. But nobody said a word. They couldn't. They had families too. I should probably explain how we got here. Hartwell Manufacturing was founded by old Henry Hartwell back in 1981. Started in a rented warehouse with 12 employees making precision parts for the auto industry. By the time I arrived in 2003, we were up to 200 people in a proper facility. When Henry's son Michael took over in 2010, we'd grown to 450 employees, doing work for automotive, aerospace, even some defense contracts. Michael Hartwell was a good man, understood manufacturing from the ground up, worked summers in the plant during high school, knew every machine, every process. More importantly, he understood that safety wasn't just about avoiding lawsuits. It was about making sure people went home to their families every night. When I started here, we were having 12 to 15 lost time accidents per year. By 2015, we were down to 2 to 3. By 2020, we went 18 months without a single lost time incident. OSHA used us as a model facility. Insurance companies gave us preferred rates. Workers actually wanted to work here because they knew we cared about more than just production numbers. That all changed when Michael died suddenly of a heart attack last February. He was only 52, left behind a wife and 2 teenagers. The family board, his brother, sister, and elderly mother, panicked. They'd never run a manufacturing operation. Michael had handled everything operational while they focused on finances and long-term strategy. Enter Gabriel Rodriguez, 35 years old, Harvard MBA, previously worked for McKinsey before getting fired from some consulting firm in Boston. His father played golf with Michael's brother-in-law, made the introduction. Gabriel came in talking about operational efficiency and profit optimization, using all the buzzwords the board wanted to hear. I tried to warn them during his interview process, not directly, that wouldn't have been appropriate, but I asked pointed questions about his manufacturing experience, 0. His understanding of safety regulations, minimal. His knowledge of our specific processes, non-existent. But he had that MBA shine, that confidence that comes from never having failed at anything, because you've never actually tried anything difficult. The board hired him 3 weeks after Michael's funeral. Gabriel's first week, he called it discovery phase. Walked around with a clipboard and his smartphone, taking notes, asking questions that showed he didn't understand the answers. I tried to be helpful, explained our safety protocols, our maintenance schedules, our training programs. He nodded politely and wrote everything down, but I could tell he was just humoring me. His second week was analysis phase. Meetings with department heads, PowerPoint presentations about operational inefficiencies and redundant positions. I saw the writing on the wall when he scheduled a meeting with HR and didn't invite me. When I asked about it, his assistant said it wasn't relevant to my position. Week 3 was implementation phase. That's when he called the safety meeting where everything fell apart. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there. He'd started questioning why we needed monthly safety inspections when OSHA only required annual ones. He'd asked why we had 2 safety coordinators when industry standard was 1 per 500 employees. He'd wondered out loud why our training budget was so excessive compared to other facilities he'd researched. But I thought Michael's death had taught the family something about the value of experience, about not changing everything at once, about respecting the people who actually made the business run. I was wrong. After Gabriel finished his little speech, I stood up slowly. The other supervisors were looking at me like I was about to explode, like maybe I'd start yelling or throw something. 20 years in the Navy teaches you better self-control than that. For documentation purposes, I said, looking at Rita from HR, not at Gabriel. I need the exact legal wording of the termination and the precise time it takes effect. Gabriel's smile got tighter. Right now. It's effective right now. I'll require that in writing, I replied evenly, with the date and time clearly recorded. That was the first crack in his confidence. Thin, almost invisible, but I'd seen that look before on young officers who suddenly realized they were in deeper water than they thought. I gathered my papers, nodded to the supervisors who'd worked with me for years, and walked out of that conference room with my head up. No drama, no speeches, no burning bridges. But as I cleaned out my office, boxing up 20 years of safety manuals, training materials, and relationships, I wasn't thinking about dignity or professional courtesy. I was thinking about Jimmy Torres's press, the one that had been making unusual noises for a week. The maintenance request I'd submitted that Gabriel's assistant had marked non-essential. The safety inspection that had been postponed pending budget review. I was thinking about 450 people who depended on this place for their livelihoods, and about a 35-year-old MBA who thought safety protocols were just expensive suggestions. Most of all, I was thinking about something I'd learned in the Navy. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who doesn't know what he doesn't know. The drive home felt longer than usual, even though it was the same 15 minutes I'd been making for 20 years. I kept thinking about Jimmy Torres's face when Gabriel announced my firing. Jimmy had 3 kids and a mortgage, been with the company since he was 19. He'd learned everything he knew about that press from me, and now there was nobody to listen when it started acting up. Maria was in the kitchen when I walked in, sorting her afternoon medications into the weekly dispenser. The lupus had been manageable for 3 years, but manageable meant expensive. Specialist visits every month, blood work every 6 weeks, medications that cost more than most people's car payments. Our insurance through Hartwell covered 80%, which was still manageable on my salary. Without it, we'd be looking at bankruptcy. "You're home early," she said, looking up with that smile that had gotten me through 8 years in the Navy and 20 years of shift work. Good meeting or bad meeting? I sat down across from her at the kitchen table where we'd planned Sophia's college applications, where we'd worked out the budget for Maria's treatments, where we'd celebrated every promotion and weathered every setback. "I got fired, honey." Her hand stopped moving. The pill bottle she was holding, $400 a month even with insurance, just sat there in her palm. What happened? I told her everything. Gabriel's entrance, the refused handshake, the termination with no explanation, no transition, no recognition of 2 decades keeping people safe. Maria listened without interrupting, the way she always did when I needed to work through something. "What's our insurance situation?" she asked when I finished. Always practical, my Maria. Figure out the immediate problem, then worry about the emotional impact. Cobra will cover us for 18 months, but it'll cost $1,800 a month. We've got enough savings to handle that and Sophia's tuition through the end of this academic year, but after that, I didn't need to finish. She knew the math as well as I did. Sophia called that evening from Ohio State. Junior year studying mechanical engineering, just like her old man had wanted to do before the Navy took me in a different direction. She was excited about a project she was working on, something about stress analysis in manufacturing equipment. I listened to her talk about load calculations and failure points, and all I could think about was that Press Jimmy was still running with a cracked bearing housing. "Dad, you sound weird," she said. "Everything okay?" I looked at Maria, who shook her head slightly. We'd agreed not to tell Sophia until we knew what came next. No point in disrupting her studies over something we couldn't change. "Just tired, mija. Long day at the plant." After Sophia hung up, I sat in my home office going through the files I'd brought from work. 20 years of safety documentation, maintenance schedules, training protocols, incident reports. Everything Gabriel had dismissed as non-essential overhead. That's when I started to understand what he'd really done. It wasn't just firing me. It was dismantling the entire safety infrastructure I'd spent 2 decades building. Looking at his first week's efficiency improvements, I could see the pattern. Safety training budget cut by 40%. Redundant with standard orientation procedures. Monthly equipment inspections reduced to quarterly. Align with minimum OSHA requirements. Safety coordinator positions eliminated. Supervisors can handle safety responsibilities. Preventive maintenance schedules optimized for cost effectiveness. Every single change was designed to save money in the short term while creating massive liability in the long term. And Gabriel didn't understand manufacturing well enough to see the difference. Tuesday morning, Jimmy Torres called me at home. "Lucas, I'm sorry to bother you, but that press is making that noise again. Getting worse. I put in another maintenance request, but they said it's not in this quarter's budget. Jimmy, stay away from that machine when it's running rough. And document everything. When the noise happens, what it sounds like, how long it lasts. Write it all down." I am, but my supervisor says I'm being paranoid. Says the new CEO doesn't want people creating problems where there aren't any. That's when I knew this wasn't going to end with my firing. Gabriel wasn't just eliminating my job, he was creating the conditions for people to get hurt. Wednesday, I called my contact at OSHA. Dan Peterson had been an inspector for 15 years, knew our facility inside and out. He'd been the one to recommend us as a model safety program 2 years ago. "Lucas, heard about what happened." "Sorry, man. How can I help?" "Hypothetically, Dan, if someone eliminated a plant safety director and started cutting safety protocols, what would that look like from a compliance perspective?" Long pause. "Hypothetically, that would be a pattern of willful violations if it could be documented, especially if it resulted in worker endangerment. And what kind of documentation would be most useful? Before and after comparisons, budget cuts, policy changes, maintenance deferrals, witness statements from workers, photos of equipment condition. The more systematic the documentation, the stronger the case." Thursday, Sarah Wilson texted me. Sarah never texted, always preferred phone calls. "Can't talk at work." Coffee. Saturday? We met at the diner on Route 11, away from town where we wouldn't run into anyone from the plant. Sarah looked tired, stressed in a way I'd never seen in 8 years of working together. "It's getting bad, Lucas. Gabriel's got everyone scared to report anything. Yesterday, one of the welders reported a gas leak, and Gabriel's assistant accused him of trying to slow down production. Today, they announced anyone who files unnecessary maintenance requests will be written up for failure to support efficiency initiatives. What about equipment condition? Worse every day. That press Jimmy runs? The noise is constant now. 2 of our cranes are overdue for certification. The ventilation system in Building C has been making grinding sounds for a week. But nobody wants to be the one to rock the boat." Sarah pulled out her phone. "I've been taking pictures when I do quality checks. Not officially, just, I don't know, I guess I figured someone should be documenting this. The photos were damning. Equipment with obvious wear, safety guards that had been removed temporarily and never replaced, warning labels that had been painted over during appearance improvements, maintenance logs showing deferred work stretching back to Gabriel's first week. Sarah, I need you to keep doing this, but be careful. And if anyone asks, you're documenting for quality control purposes, not safety violations." That weekend, I started building the case, not for revenge, though I'd be lying if I said that wasn't part of it, but because 450 people depended on that plant for their livelihoods, and Gabriel was creating conditions that could kill somebody. I organized everything chronologically: Gabriel's hiring, his efficiency initiatives, the budget cuts, my termination, the maintenance deferrals, the safety protocol eliminations. Each decision led logically to the next, building a pattern that even a Harvard MBA should have been able to see. But Gabriel was operating on quarterly thinking in an industry that required long-term planning. He was optimizing spreadsheets while ignoring the physical reality of manufacturing equipment that needed constant attention to operate safely. Monday morning, Jimmy called again. This time, his voice was shaking. "Lucas, the press threw a rod bearing this morning. Loud bang, oil everywhere, metal shrapnel. If I'd been standing where I usually do..." He didn't finish the sentence. "Anyone hurt?" "No, but only because I remembered what you taught me about keeping clear when equipment sounds wrong. Thing is, Gabriel's saying it's operator error. Says Jimmy was running the machine outside parameters and caused the failure himself. That's when my methodical planning turned into urgent action. Gabriel wasn't just risking accidents anymore, he was creating them and blaming the workers. Time to call Dan Peterson back. Not hypothetically this time. I called Dan Peterson that Monday afternoon, right after Jimmy told me about Gabriel blaming him for the bearing failure. 23 years I'd known Dan. He'd been a junior inspector when I first started at Hartwell, worked his way up to regional supervisor. He knew manufacturing, understood the difference between normal wear and willful negligence. Dan, I need to file a formal complaint. Multiple willful safety violations, pattern of disregard for worker safety, imminent danger conditions. Lucas, you know I have to ask, this isn't just about you getting fired, is it? No. This is about Jimmy Torres almost getting killed because a 35-year-old MBA thinks preventive maintenance is too expensive. This is about 450 people working in conditions that get more dangerous every day. Dan was quiet for a moment. What do you have? Everything. Budget documentation showing systematic cuts to safety programs, photos of equipment deterioration, witness statements from workers afraid to report problems, maintenance records showing deferred work, and a press that just catastrophically failed because Gabriel refused to authorize a $200 bearing replacement. Send me what you've got. If it's as bad as you're saying, we'll be on site within 48 hours. Tuesday evening, I sat in my home office organizing the formal complaint. Maria brought me coffee and looked over my shoulder at the photographs Sarah had taken. Equipment with obvious defects, safety systems that had been disabled, warning signs that had been removed to improve facility appearance. This is really bad, isn't it? Maria said. Worse than bad. Gabriel's created conditions that could kill someone, and when equipment fails, he's blaming the workers instead of fixing the problems. What happens when OSHA gets involved? Best case scenario for Gabriel, they find violations, issue fines, require corrections. Worst case, they shut the plant down until everything's fixed. And for us? I turned around and took her hand. Either way, Gabriel's going to learn that cutting corners has consequences. And maybe, if the board has any sense left, they'll realize they need people who actually understand manufacturing. Wednesday morning, I submitted the complaint electronically, then drove to the OSHA regional office to deliver hard copies of everything. Dan met me in the parking lot. Lucas, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've never seen documentation this thorough from someone who wasn't already on the inside of an investigation. 20 years of keeping detailed records pays off eventually. We're sending a team tomorrow. Unannounced inspection, full facility review. If half of what you've documented is accurate, this company's in serious trouble. Thursday morning, 8:47 a.m., 3 OSHA, inspectors walked through the front doors of Hartwell Manufacturing. I wasn't there to see it, but Jimmy Torres called me an hour later. Lucas, you should see the panic. Gabriel's running around trying to get maintenance to fix everything at once. They're pulling people off production to reinstall safety guards, replace warning signs, anything they can do fast. But some of this stuff, you can't fix 20 years of equipment degradation in an hour. The inspection took 2 days. Dan called me Friday evening. Lucas, I've been doing this job for 2 decades, and I've never seen such a systematic disregard for worker safety. We documented 47 serious violations, 12 of which constitute willful negligence. The press that failed, the bearing housing had been cracked for months. Any competent safety program would have caught that in a routine inspection. What's the timeline? Emergency shutdown order goes into effect Monday morning. Willful violations with imminent danger to workers. They can't resume operations until every violation is corrected and re-inspected. Friday night, Gabriel started making phone calls. I know because Sarah Wilson texted me Saturday morning. Gabriel called an emergency meeting for Sunday. All department heads, all supervisors. He's claiming the OSHA inspection was triggered by a disgruntled former employee and that the violations are being exaggerated. Sunday afternoon, Sarah called me directly this time. Lucas, you need to know what happened in that meeting. Gabriel accused you of sabotaging the company out of spite. Said you probably planted evidence or coached workers to lie to the inspectors. Then he announced that anyone caught talking to you or sharing company information would be fired immediately. How did people react? Dead silence at first. Then Jimmy Torres stood up. You remember Jimmy? Quiet guy, never makes waves. He looked Gabriel right in the eye and said, Lucas Martinez spent 20 years keeping us safe. You spent 3 weeks putting us in danger. OSHA didn't need any coaching to see which one of those mattered. Good for Jimmy. What did Gabriel say? Nothing. What could he say? Everyone in that room knew Jimmy almost got hurt because Gabriel wouldn't spend $200 on a bearing. Everyone knew you'd been warning about exactly the problems OSHA found. Monday morning brought the official shutdown notice. Hartwell Manufacturing ceased all operations pending correction of safety violations. For a company with daily contracts and just-in-time delivery schedules, a shutdown was catastrophic. By Tuesday, the phone calls started. Not to me, I was persona non grata, but the word filtered back through the network of people I'd worked with for 20 years. Customer contracts in jeopardy, penalty clauses being triggered, financial projections collapsing. Gabriel tried to control the narrative. Press release about routine safety upgrades and temporary operational adjustments. But in a town of 8,000 people where Hartwell was the largest employer, word travels fast. Everyone knew someone who worked at the plant. Everyone knew about the shutdown order. Wednesday, the Hartwell family board called an emergency meeting, not with Gabriel present. That detail was important. They were reviewing operational decisions made during the transition period. Thursday morning, Gabriel made his first mistake since the firing. He called me. "We need to talk," he said, like we were colleagues working out a minor disagreement. "I'm listening. This shutdown is hurting everyone, workers, the community, the company. You know these OSHA people better than anyone. What would it take to get them to be reasonable about the timeline?" I let that sit for a moment. Gabriel, OSHA isn't being unreasonable. They found 47 safety violations in a facility I kept violation-free for 15 years. They found equipment that could have killed people. They found a systematic pattern of ignoring worker safety for short-term cost savings. Look, mistakes were made, but we can fix this. I'm prepared to offer you a consulting position to help manage the corrective process. Substantial daily rate, recognition of your expertise. What about Jimmy Torres? You going to apologize to him for blaming him when your cost-cutting almost got him hurt? Silence. What about the other workers who were afraid to report problems because you'd threatened to write them up? You going to acknowledge that maybe they knew what they were talking about? More silence. Gabriel, this isn't about money or recognition. This is about 450 people who deserve to work in a safe environment. You eliminated that safety because you thought you knew better than the people who'd been doing this work for decades. You can't just destroy a company because you're angry about losing your job. I didn't destroy anything. I documented the destruction you were already causing. OSHA shut you down because you created conditions that violated federal safety law, not because I filed a complaint. He hung up. Friday afternoon, Dan Peterson called with the final inspection report. Total estimated cost to correct all violations, $180,000 in equipment repairs and upgrades, plus whatever it costs to hire qualified safety staff and rebuild the compliance programs. Timeline for full correction, minimum 3 weeks, assuming they start immediately and do everything right. And if they don't, then they stay shut down until they do. Lucas, you should know. The board's been asking questions about how this happened so fast. Word is, they're not happy with the answers they're getting. That night, I sat in my kitchen looking at the newspaper coverage of the shutdown. Local manufacturing plant closed for safety violations. Below the headline was a photo of the empty parking lot where 450 cars should have been. Gabriel had wanted to eliminate what he saw as unnecessary overhead. Instead, he'd eliminated the company's ability to operate safely, legally, and profitably. Sometimes the most expensive cost-cutting measures are the ones that look cheapest on a spreadsheet. Monday morning, Gabriel Rodriguez walked into Hartwell Manufacturing for the last time as CEO, though he didn't know it yet. The parking lot was empty except for a few management cars. No workers, no production, no revenue. Just the sound of his footsteps echoing through hallways that should have been filled with the noise of 450 people earning their livings. Sarah Wilson called me at 10:15 a.m. emergency board meeting. Gabriel wasn't invited. By noon, it was over. 27 days after refusing to shake my hand, Gabriel Rodriguez was escorted out of the building by the same security guard who'd watched him fire me. No fanfare, no speeches, just a thin folder with his separation agreement and a parking lot that felt more empty than it had 30 minutes before. The call came Tuesday afternoon. Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell, Henry's widow and the family matriarch who'd been silent during Gabriel's hiring, asked if I could meet with the board Thursday morning. "We'd like to discuss your potential return to Hartwell Manufacturing," she said. Her voice was tired, older than I remembered. "We need to fix this situation. and we need someone who understands how to do it right. Thursday morning, I walked back into the conference room where Gabriel had fired me a month before. Same table, same chairs, but the atmosphere couldn't have been more different. Mrs. Hartwell, her son David, daughter Patricia, and the family attorney were there, along with Dan Peterson from OSHA and a consultant from the insurance company. "Lucas, we owe you an apology," Mrs. Hartwell began. "We made a mistake hiring Gabriel, and a bigger mistake not listening to you during his interview process. We'd like to discuss bringing you back to oversee the safety remediation and, if you're willing, to take on expanded responsibilities as Vice President of Safety and Operations." The offer was generous: 25% salary increase, expanded authority, guaranteed funding for safety programs, and a commitment that operational decisions affecting safety would require my approval. The board would also establish a safety committee with worker representation, something I'd suggested years earlier. "I appreciate the offer," I said, "but I need to understand something first. What's changed? A month ago, you thought Gabriel's approach was the right direction for the company. What makes you think differently now?" David Hartwell, Michael's brother, answered. "We learned the difference between efficiency and recklessness. Gabriel talked about cutting costs, but he was actually cutting the foundations that kept this company operating safely and legally. We trusted someone who sounded smart over someone who'd proven himself reliable. The insurance company's been very clear," added their attorney. "The pattern of violations Gabriel created has put our coverage at risk. They want to see a comprehensive safety overhaul managed by someone with a proven track record before they'll even discuss renewal." Dan Peterson spoke up. "Lucas, I'll be honest. OSHA is going to be watching this facility closely for the next few years. You're the only person I know who could rebuild the safety program to a standard that would give everyone confidence." I looked around the room at faces that had trusted the wrong person and paid a heavy price for it. "I'll do it, but with conditions. First, I want Jimmy Torres promoted to safety coordinator. He's earned it, and he understands the equipment better than anyone. Second, I want a written commitment that safety budgets can't be cut without board approval. Third, I want quarterly safety reviews with worker participation, not just management reporting." "Agreed," Mrs. Hartwell said without hesitation. "And one more thing. I want Gabriel's termination to include a clear statement that he was fired for creating unsafe working conditions. Not budget issues, not performance problems, unsafe conditions. I want every worker in this plant to know that their safety matters more than quarterly profits." That took longer to negotiate, but they agreed. 3 weeks later, I was back in my office, a bigger office this time, with a view of the production floor where Jimmy Torres was training 2 new safety coordinators on proper equipment inspection procedures. The OSHA violations had been corrected, the plant was back online, and we'd implemented safety protocols that went beyond minimum requirements. Gabriel's fate. Last I heard, he was working for a consulting firm in Chicago, helping companies optimize their operational efficiency. The irony wasn't lost on me. He'd probably keep making the same mistakes until someone else taught him the same lesson we had. But that wasn't my problem anymore. Sophia called the night we reopened the plant. She'd heard about my promotion through the family grapevine and wanted to congratulate me. "Dad, I'm proud of you for standing up to that guy. My engineering professor says too many companies value credentials over competence." "What did you tell him?" "I told him my dad always said the best safety manual is useless if nobody's willing to enforce it." Smart girl, my Sophia. Maria was doing better too. The stress of the job loss had been hard on her, made the lupus symptoms worse. But seeing me back where I belonged, doing work that mattered again, seemed to help her recovery. We kept the same insurance plan, same doctors, same medications. Stability matters when you're dealing with chronic illness. The plant's running better than it ever has. We haven't had a lost time accident in 8 months. Our OSHA ratings are exemplary, and worker morale is higher than I've seen in years. The safety committee meetings are actually productive. Workers feel comfortable raising concerns, and management listens. More importantly, we've created a culture where experience is valued over credentials, where the people who actually do the work have a voice in how it gets done safely. Gabriel taught me something valuable, though I doubt he meant to. Respect isn't something you can demand or eliminate with budget cuts. It's something you earn through consistency, competence, and caring about the people you work with. When he refused to shake my hand that day, he thought he was showing everyone who had power. Instead, He showed everyone who understood responsibility. The handshake he refused didn't matter. What mattered was the 20 years of work that followed, the relationships I'd built, the trust I'd earned, and the knowledge I'd gained about how things really work. Gabriel was right about one thing: we don't shake hands with people who are already gone. The difference is he misunderstood who was leaving and who was staying. He's the one who was already gone. He just didn't know it yet. Looking back, I'm almost grateful for what happened. Not the way it happened, nobody should be humiliated at their workplace, but the reminder it gave me about what really matters. It's not the title on your door or the letters after your name. It's whether people trust you to do the right thing when it matters, and whether you're willing to fight for that trust when someone tries to take it away. Sometimes the most important battles aren't about winning or losing. They're about making sure the right things get protected for the people who come after you. That's a lesson Gabriel never learned. But Jimmy Torres understands it. Sarah Wilson lives it every day. And now, hopefully, it's built into the foundation of Hartwell Manufacturing in a way that nobody can just budget cut away. That's worth more than any handshake. Here's what I learned. In the real world, authority that has to announce itself isn't real authority at all. True power belongs to the people who understand how things actually work, and who have the courage to protect that knowledge when someone tries to destroy it.